What is the attack framework? This lecture will outline the evolution of the attack framework in the various different high-level configurations for types of systems such as cloud, mobile, or Windows. It will also serve as an introduction to related use cases. We will cover a brief history and evolution of attack, as well as an overview of the various attack models. A brief history and evolution of attack. Let's start with the basics and learn about the history, purpose, categories, and overview of different models within this lecture. The MITRE ATT&CK framework was founded in 2015. It started off as a total of 9 tactics and 96 techniques and quickly gained traction for how threats and attacks were categorized and organized in security. It currently stands at version 11, released in April 2022. It has 14 tactics, 191 techniques, 386 sub-techniques, 134 groups, and covers 680 pieces of software. It remains one of the top comprehensive knowledge bases out there. Over the years, it has included specific operating systems and different types of infrastructures and environments, making it a more practical framework to categorize threats against your environment as a whole. The growth from 2015 to 2022 alone shows the amount of work that has gone into identifying new techniques, detections, and mitigation strategies, and it has continued to be publicly accessible for everyone to use as a resource when evaluating their environments. The matrices continue to be tweaked and perfected, and new matrices are being added. According to the release notes from version 11 of Attack, Attack for Mobile is still in beta with future plans for advancement and continued development. They also list out all of the techniques and sub-techniques that have been changed in the update and list out new techniques that have been added, so you can quickly digest the new information without having to dig through the matrices by yourself. All of the matrices are to be used as a guideline when evaluating and categorizing risks and techniques. In fact, a large portion of security tools now align detections to the MITRE ATT&CK, and it continues to gain more popularity as a resource and strategy, with more to be created in the future. This means that understanding the framework is a valuable skill for any cyber practitioner, and you should have both theoretical knowledge and practical knowledge, meaning you not only understand what the techniques are, but also how to create an implementation and categorize threats in your network to align with the framework. The continued evolution of the matrices means that this is a tool in and of itself, in addition to being a resource that is integrated with many of the current cybersecurity tools. It is used to build justification for monitoring, more mature detection, and implementing mitigations. The framework can even be used to assign criticality with different techniques based on your environment, which gives you a prioritization system so you can focus your efforts on the areas that need the most help. The MITRE ATT&CK framework is only going to continue to advance and grow and be more applicable to more environments. So it's important to be able to learn and speak about it and apply controls effectively. The next section will cover a brief overview of the current attack model, including the tactics, matrices, and a sampling of example techniques and sub-techniques. Overview of the various attack models. As mentioned, the MITRE ATT&CK framework has evolved to include multiple different models based on operating systems and environments. Currently, these are the following models. These models are meant to be used in a pick-and-choose manner so that as an end user, you are able to select the techniques and matrices that apply to your environment and mix and match options as needed. We'll take a deep dive into quite a few of the different models by looking at the types of techniques and a comparison of the different models through future lectures. However, from a basic point of view, they are all initially based on a version of the Cyber Kill Chain framework. The Cyber Kill Chain framework, developed by Lockheed Martin, involves the following stages. 1. Reconnaissance, used for information gathering, scanning, and so on. 2. Weaponization. An attacker would choose an exploit based on the information gathered in the reconnaissance phase and package the exploit for the next stage. 3. Delivery. The exploit that was packaged during the weaponization phase is sent to the potential victim. Methods to send the package include phishing, whaling, drive-by download, and so on. 4. Exploitation. The exploit that was weaponized and delivered in previous stages has now been executed on the victim's account or system. 5. Installation. The malware or exploit has been installed and detonated on the victim's system or account and is considered an active infection at this point. 6. Command and control. Due to this being an active infection, the malware or exploit will have established persistent communications in multiple different forms. One possible form would be through a periodic beacon. which essentially sends network traffic from the infected host to a C2 server to let the attacker know what systems are still compromised. 7. Action on objectives. The exploit or malware has completed its objective, which could be something such as exfiltration of data, opening a back door, logging keystrokes, and so on. The cyber kill chain stages are also broken into more granular tactics. After the tactics, they are broken into techniques and sub-techniques. Some examples of techniques are hijack execution flow, file and directory permissions modification, and forge web credentials. They can be broken down as follows. As we can see, we have the category, which is also a tactic. Next, we have the technique number. Every technique within the matrices has its own unique number, and all sub-techniques have the identification number with 0.001 and so on. For example, the sub-technique of DLL search order hijacking would have the technique number of T1574.001. Then there is a description, but to get to that, you would have to select the technique you are interested in on the matrix and go to the reference link. On the matrix itself, it does show all the sub-techniques. On the reference page, you get the description, any other tactics that the technique can be a part of, possible mitigation steps to lessen the risk of the technique, possible detection strategies, and additional resources specific to that technique. The reference pages for all the techniques can be incredibly informative and helpful when learning about the techniques and risk and learning how to apply risk categorizations to your organization. One thing to keep in mind is that with the example and the matrix alone, while a lot of the tactics or stages are the same as the ones listed in the cyber kill chain, it's important to understand what the cyber kill chain is and its purpose, as there are a few key differences between the two. The first difference is that the MITRE framework is more detail-oriented than the cyber kill chain. For example, the cyber kill chain only has overall tactics or stages listed, and not techniques, sub-techniques, detections, mitigations, and so on. The second difference is that the cyber kill chain is flat and does not have variable forms for different types of environments. This means that it attempts to take a one-stage-fits-all approach, and that's also why it must be more generalized than specific. Another important aspect to remember is that not everything from the MITRE ATT&CK framework can be implemented. For example, some techniques rely on you predicting the future for new malware. Well, you want to try to predict what is coming next. You will never be able to fully predict the future. That can be a downfall to being specific. The techniques or sub-techniques don't always fit, which is why it's important with the matrices to use them as a guide and apply concepts where needed. It's not a compliance framework where you're going to try to obtain 100% of the matrix. And if you are taking that approach right now, you should stop and reevaluate. Taking that approach will only lead to headaches and disappointments. So it's critical to analyze your environment and understand how to implement detection, mitigations, controls that make sense to your environment and add value. Summary. The MITRE ATT&CK framework is important to understand to have as a part of your foundation of information for a career in information security. The building blocks, such as how the matrices are used, how to build detections ranging from novice to expert in depth of understanding, and learning new techniques due to the continued evolution of the matrices, keep you current in this industry. In the next lecture, we'll begin our first of multiple deep dives by looking at the enterprise-level matrix. We'll cover a large sampling of techniques, sub-techniques, detections, and mitigations. We'll also talk through real-world examples of implementing those detections and mitigations and the risks that can be associated with those techniques if they were to be exploited.